General Day stood on the bridge of the Iron Dawn and watched the alien ship approach. The Vrex ambassador's vessel looked like a blade cutting through space, sharp and deadly. Around him, his crew worked in silence, checking weapons and shields. Everyone knew what was coming. The screen flickered to life. The Vrex ambassador stared at them with 4 yellow eyes. Her skin was dark purple, and when she spoke, her voice sounded like metal scraping on stone. Humans of Earth, the Vrex Empire has claimed this sector of space. You have 72 hours to surrender your worlds and your weapons. Refuse, and we will destroy everything you have built. Day's second-in-command, Commander Yuna, stood beside him with her hands clenched into fists. She wanted to shout back, to tell the alien what she thought of their demands, but she stayed quiet, waiting for her general to speak. Day smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. "Tell your Empress," he said slowly, "that we accept her challenge." The ambassador's eyes widened. Behind her, other Vrex officers looked at each other in confusion. Humans never accepted challenges. They ran or begged or made deals. They did not smile. "You do not understand," the ambassador said. "We control 1,200 star systems. You control 43. Our fleet is—" "I understand perfectly," Day interrupted. 72 hours, we will be ready." He cut the transmission. The bridge erupted in noise. Officers asked questions all at once. How would they fight? Where would they run? What was the plan? Day held up one hand, and everyone went quiet. "Yuna, come with me. The rest of you, prepare the fleet for departure. I will send you coordinates soon." He walked off the bridge without another word. Yuna hurried after him. In his private quarters, Day pulled out an old wooden box from under his bed. Inside were things that did not belong on a military spaceship: a chicken feather, a small iron key, a piece of black bread wrapped in cloth, a knife with strange symbols carved into the handle. "Sir, what are those?" Yuna asked. "Reminders," Day said, "of where I came from, of what I learned." He had never told anyone his full story. People knew he grew up in the old Siberian forests, that he joined the military at 22, that he rose through the ranks faster than anyone in history. But they did not know about the house with chicken legs. They did not know about the witch. "I was 7 years old when the transport ship crashed," Day began. "My parents died. Everyone died except me. I walked through the snow for 3 days. I should have frozen, should have starved, but I kept walking." He held the chicken feather up to the light. "On the 3rd day, I found a house. It stood on giant chicken legs, and it was turning slowly in a circle. I thought I was dreaming. The door opened by itself, and an old woman looked down at me. Her teeth were iron. Her eyes were black like deep wells." "Baba Yaga," Yuna whispered. Everyone knew the stories. The witch who ate children, the monster from old Russian tales. "She did not eat me," Day said. "She looked at me for a long time, then said I could stay if I worked. She needed someone to fetch firewood, to grind bones in her mortar, to clean her house. If I failed any task, she would cook me in her oven." Yuna sat down slowly. This could not be real. Baba Yaga was just a story. "For 15 years, she gave me impossible tasks," Day continued. "Count every star in the sky before dawn, catch the north wind in a bucket, find the answer to a riddle with no answer. Every task should have killed me, but I learned." He touched the iron key. "I learned that reality bends if you know how to push it. That fear is just a tool, like a hammer or a gun. That the impossible is only impossible if you believe it is." "Sir, why are you telling me this now?" Yuna asked. Day looked at her with eyes that seemed older than they should be. "Because the Vrex think they understand war. They think bigger fleets win, more weapons win, logic wins, but they are wrong. Baba Yaga taught me that war is a story. The side that controls the story controls everything. He began putting items back in the box. "In 3 hours, I need you to gather our best engineers. Tell them I have a project. Tell them it will sound insane, but they must do it anyway." "What project?" "We are going to build a ship that walks." Yuna stared at him. "Sir, that is, ships do not walk. That makes no sense. The physics alone—" "Exactly," Day said. "The Vrex will think the same thing. That is why it will work." He pulled out a piece of paper and began drawing. The sketch showed a ship with long, jointed legs instead of engines. It looked like something from a nightmare or a fairy tale. "This will be our weapon, not because it is powerful, but because it should not exist. The Vrex believe in rules, in what is possible. We are going to show them that humans believe in different things." Yuna looked at the drawing, then at her general, then back at the drawing. "You want to make them afraid?" she said slowly. "No," Day corrected. "I want to make them doubt. Fear comes later. First, they must stop believing in their own story. They must start believing in ours." He handed her the drawing. "Get Engineer Mina. Tell her to bring her best team. Tell her I need something impossible built in 72 hours. Yuna took the paper with shaking hands. "And if they say it cannot be done?" Day's smile returned. It was the smile that made enemies nervous and allies uncomfortable. "Then tell them about the house that walked on chicken legs. Tell them about the witch who bent reality like clay. Tell them that humans have always been friends with impossible things." Yuna left his quarters with the drawing clutched to her chest. Behind her, Day opened the wooden box one more time. At the bottom, wrapped in old cloth, was a small doll made of sticks and string. Baba Yaga had given it to him on his last day with her. "When you need me," the witch had said, "hold this and remember what I taught you. Reality is negotiable. Fear is currency. And stories are weapons sharper than any blade." Day held the doll for a moment, then put it back. Somewhere far away, in a forest that existed in folded space and old magic, he imagined Baba Yaga laughing. Her apprentice was about to teach the galaxy what it meant to face a human who remembered the old ways. The Vrex Empire would learn what every child knew in their nightmares. You do not challenge those who learned magic from witches. You do not fight those who grew up grinding bones and counting stars. You especially do not threaten their home. Day returned to the bridge. His crew looked at him with questions in their eyes. He stood before the view screen and looked at the stars. "Begin preparations," he said quietly. "The Vrex think this will be a war. They are wrong. This will be a fairy tale. And in fairy tales, the monsters always learn their lesson." Engineer Mina stared at the drawings for 6 hours straight. Around her, her team argued and calculated and threw their hands up in frustration. The numbers did not work. The physics did not work. Nothing about this design made any sense. "It cannot be done," her assistant Wu said for the 10th time. "General Day is asking us to break every law of motion and energy. Ships do not walk. Space has no ground to walk on." Mina rubbed her tired eyes. She had worked with Day before on strange projects, but this was too much. A ship with legs, a vessel that moved through space like a giant bird or beast, sensors that showed different things to different people. It was madness. "Maybe that is the point," she muttered. "What?" Wu asked. "Maybe the point is madness. Maybe that is the weapon." She stood up and looked at her team. 15 engineers, all brilliant, all exhausted. They had 48 hours left before the Vrex arrived. "Stop trying to make it make sense," Mina said. "Start trying to make it look impossible." "But, listen. The general does not need this ship to work better than a normal ship. He needs it to work differently. He needs it to break their brains when they see it." She grabbed a marker and began drawing on the wall screen. "We use fold space engines, but we put them in the legs. We make each leg step through folded space. To us, it looks like walking. To them, it looks like something appearing and disappearing. "That is incredibly inefficient," another engineer said. "I know, but it will look wrong. It will look like something that should not exist." Wu slowly nodded. "And the sensors? Holographic projections, quantum signature randomizers. We make the ship show a different reflection to every sensor that looks at it. One ship sees a destroyer, another sees debris. A third sees nothing. That requires so much power." "I do not care," Mina interrupted. "Make it work for one battle. That is all we need." The team worked for 2 days straight. They barely slept. They ate meals at their workstations. Mina pushed them hard, but she pushed herself harder. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she remembered her grandmother's stories. Tales of houses that walked on chicken legs, witches who flew in mortars, magic that made the impossible real. Maybe humans were always meant to build impossible things. On the third morning, the Kurosi stood ready in the construction dock. It looked wrong. The legs were too long. The body was too small. It should not be able to balance, should not be able to move. But when they turned on the engines, the legs twitched. Then they stepped. The Kurosi walked 3 steps through the dock, and half the engineering crew screamed. It moved like a living thing, like something hunting. The legs bent in ways that made eyes hurt to watch. "It works," Wu whispered. "It actually works." Mina felt sick and proud at the same time. "Get it to the fleet," she said, "and pray this is enough." The Vrex fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 800 warships in perfect formation, they moved through space like a school of metal fish, synchronized and deadly. Admiral Krexkor commanded them from his flagship, the Endless Blade. "Sensors show human fleet ahead," his officer reported. 43 ships at Threshold Station. Krexkor's face split in what his species considered a smile. 43 against 800. The humans must be insane to fight. "All ships. Attack formation. Destroy their defenses, but leave the station intact. We will need it." The Vrex fleet moved forward like a wave of death. Then the sensors went crazy. "Sir, I am reading over 1,000 human ships." "That is impossible. Check again." "I am checking. The readings they are everywhere. I cannot tell which are real." Krexkor pulled up the sensor display. Human ship signatures filled the space around Threshold Station. Too many signatures. It made no sense. "They are using some kind of jamming technology. Ignore the false readings. All ships, fire on confirmed targets only." The Vrex fleet opened fire. Weapons lit up the darkness, but most shots hit nothing. The targets vanished before the weapons arrived. Other targets were revealed as empty space with transmitters. And the real human ships struck from impossible angles. Captain Tay led his fighter squadron through the Vrex formation. His orders from General Day were simple and strange. Fly like you are dancing, not fighting. Move in patterns that make no sense. So he did. His 20 fighters spiraled and looped and twisted through space. They moved in circles and figure eights. They flew in patterns that his instructors would have failed him for. Completely illogical flight paths. The Vrex targeting computers could not compensate. They predicted logical movement, efficient trajectories. They could not predict a fighter that suddenly flew straight up for no reason, or one that spun in circles while shooting. "They are insane!" a Vrex gunner shouted. "I cannot target them!" Tay's squadron destroyed 12 Vrex cruisers in the first 20 minutes, not because they were better pilots, but because they were worse, because they broke every rule and let instinct guide them. On the bridge of the Iron Dawn, Yuna watched her general work. Day stood perfectly still, eyes closed, as if listening to something only he could hear. Then he would give an order. "Move the 3rd Squadron to bearing 88 Mark IV. "Sir, there is nothing at that bearing. There will be in 40 seconds. And he was right. Every time. It was like he could see the future, or like he was writing the story as it happened. "Sir, Vrex formation is breaking. They are confused." Day opened his eyes. Good. Now they are ready. Launch the Kurosi. The walking ship appeared on every screen in the battle zone. Human crews gasped. Vrex crews froze. The Kurosi stepped through space on massive jointed legs. Each step covered thousands of kilometers. It moved wrong, looked wrong, existed wrong. On Vrex sensors, it appeared as 50 different things: a destroyer, a capital ship, a cloud of debris, a hole in space. One Vrex ship's tactical computer simply shut down, unable to process what it was seeing. "What is that?" Krexkor demanded. "What are we looking at?" "I do not know, sir. Sensors cannot identify it. It appears to be walking." "Ships do not walk." "I know, sir, but it is walking." The Kurosi took another step and appeared directly above a Vrex battleship. Its weapons fired and the battleship shattered like glass. Panic spread through the Vrex fleet like disease. Some captains ordered retreat. Others fired wildly at anything that moved. The perfect formation dissolved into chaos. "All ships withdraw," Krexkor finally ordered. "Retreat to rally point 7. We will regroup." The Vrex fleet fled. 800 ships running from 43. On the Iron Dawn, the crew cheered. They had won. They had actually won. But Yuna saw that Day was not celebrating. He stood at the window, looking at the fleeing Vrex ships. "This was the easy part," he said quietly. "They will be back. And next time, they will be ready for tricks. Next time, we will need real magic." In the medical bay, 16 human crew members had died. 30 more were injured. Day visited each bed, each memorial. He spoke quietly with the families of the dead. Yuna found him there hours after the battle. "Sir, we won." "You should be celebrating with the crew." "Every victory has a price," Day said. He touched the name on a memorial plaque, a young pilot, barely 20 years old. "Baba Yaga taught me that. Every spell costs something. Every magic requires sacrifice." "Will it be enough? What we did today?" Day looked at her with ancient eyes. "No. The Vrex Empress will come herself now. She will bring 3,000 ships. She will study what we did and prepare for it. The tricks will not work twice." "Then what do we do?" Day smiled that terrible smile. "We stop using tricks. We start using real magic. We make them forget this is a war. We make them remember this is a fairy tale." He walked toward the door, then paused. "Tell Mina to rest. In 3 days, I will need her for something harder. We are going to steal something from the Vrex." "Steal what?" "Their certainty, their confidence, their belief that they are the hunters." He looked back at Yuna. "We are going to make them realize they walked into the witch's house, and in the witch's house, the rules are different." Somewhere in deep space, on the Vrex flagship, Admiral Krexkor sent his report to the Empress. He tried to explain what had happened. Ships that appeared as ghosts, fighters that flew like madmen, and a vessel that walked through space on legs like some ancient predator. Empress Velxa read the report 3 times. Then she made her decision. She would take personal command. She would bring the full Grand Armada, and she would destroy these humans and their impossible general. She did not know that was exactly what Day wanted her to do. Empress Velxa watched the battle recordings for the 100th time. She had ruled the Vrex Empire for 40 cycles. She had conquered 27 different species. She had never lost a war, until now. Not lost, she corrected herself. Delayed, confused, but not lost. "Explain it again," she commanded her science officer. "The humans use psychological warfare, Empress. They make their ships appear as multiple targets. They fly in unpredictable patterns. They built a vessel that moves through space in a way that confuses our sensors. So they use tricks. Advanced tricks, yes, but tricks. Once we understand the patterns, we can counter them." Velxa stood. She was tall even for her species, with dark purple skin marked by the scars of old battles. Her 4 eyes could see in many spectrums. But even she could not understand what she saw in the recordings. Ready the Grand Armada. 3,000 ships. I will lead personally. Her officers looked at each other nervously. The Empress never left the capital world. Never. Empress, is that wise? To risk yourself for... Wise! Velxa's voice went cold. A species with 43 ships defeated a fleet of 800. They made Admiral Krexkor retreat. Every species in the galaxy is watching. If I do not crush this personally, our empire appears weak. She turned to face her officers. These humans are using fear as a weapon. They want us to doubt ourselves. So I will show them what real fear looks like. Ready my ship. While the Vrex prepared their massive fleet, General Day stood in the docking bay of Threshold Station. In front of him stood 5 people, Yuna, Tay, Mina, and a young communications officer named Han. What you are about to hear will sound insane, Day said. You may refuse this mission. No shame, no punishment. No one moved. Day nodded. We are taking the Kurosi deep into Vrex territory, to their capital world. That is suicide, Tay said flatly. Probably, but necessary. We are going to do something that will change this war. We are going to make the Vrex afraid of their own homes. He pulled up a holographic map. It showed the Vrex capital, Vrex Prime, at the center of their empire. Security around the capital is impossible to breach normally, but the Kurosi is not a normal ship. We walk past their defenses. We walk through their patrols. And when we reach the capital, we leave them a gift. What gift? Mina asked. Day's smile was cold. Doubt, fear. The feeling that something is in their homes watching them. We make their safest place feel haunted. Han, the youngest of the group, spoke up. Sir, I do not understand. How does that help us win? Dai looked at him. Because empires are built on certainty. The Vrex are certain they are stronger, smarter, better. They are certain their homes are safe. Break that certainty and the empire cracks. Baba Yaga taught me this. She taught me that the strongest walls are the ones in minds. Yuna crossed her arms. And if we get caught, then we die. But the mission succeeds anyway, because they will know we were there. They will know humans walked through their capital undetected. The doubt spreads either way. The 5 of them looked at each other. This was madness. Complete madness. When do we leave? Yuna asked. Tonight. The Kurosi walked through Vrex space like a ghost. Patrols saw it on their sensors and dismissed it as debris or malfunctioning equipment or stress hallucinations. No ship walked. Therefore, what they saw could not be a ship. Captain Tay piloted the strange vessel with growing confidence. He had learned to think like Day taught him, to ignore what should work and trust what felt right. Patrol ahead, Mina reported. 6 cruisers. Walk past them, Day said calmly. Tay made the Kurosi take 3 steps. The ship appeared to stride over the patrol like they were insects. The Vrex ships saw nothing. Their sensors reported empty space. It took them 5 days to reach Vrex Prime. 5 days of moving through enemy territory completely undetected. By the time they reached orbit around the capital world, even Yuna started to believe in impossible things. Day gathered them in the small cargo bay. Mina, show them. Mina opened a case filled with thousands of tiny devices, each no bigger than a grain of sand. Nanoscale mobile units, she explained. They do not explode. They do not hack anything. They just move things, open doors, tilt pictures, make small sounds, move objects when no one is looking. You want to haunt an entire planet, Yuna said slowly. Yes, Day confirmed. We deploy these throughout the capital city. They activate over weeks, slowly, small things at first, things people dismiss, then bigger things, until every Vrex on this world feels like something is in their home, something they cannot see or catch or fight. Han worked his console. Sir, I can deliver them through the atmospheric recycling systems. The whole capital will be covered in 2 hours. Do it. They worked through the night. The Kurosi stayed in orbit, hidden among orbital debris. Han sent the nanoscale devices down to the planet. Mina monitored their dispersal. Tay kept the ship ready to run, and Day sat in the command chair, eyes closed, as if praying or listening to something far away. It is done, Han finally reported. Every major building in the capital has been seeded. Activation? I set them for random triggers over the next 30 days. Small movements first, then escalating. Day opened his eyes. Good. Now we wait 3 hours for the seeds to settle. Then we leave. 3 hours? Tay asked. Sir, that is a long time to stay in enemy space. I know, but I need to send a message first. He pulled up a communication console and began recording. The message was not encrypted, not hidden. He wanted it found. To every Vrex who can hear this, my name is General Day of Earth. I was raised by Baba Yaga, the witch of the forest. She taught me that reality bends, that fear is negotiable, that the impossible is merely inconvenient. He leaned forward. You think you are hunting us. You are wrong. You walked into the house that eats empires. You threatened the children of the witch. And now, in your homes, in your safest places, you will feel what my teacher taught me. You will learn that some things in the universe do not follow your rules. He sent the message on all frequencies, then deleted the source. But it was too late. Vrex security forces had already triangulated the signal. It came from their capital, from orbit. Alarms screamed across the planet. Time to go, Day said calmly. The Kurosi ran, or rather, it walked very fast. The legs moved in a blur, stepping through folded space, appearing and disappearing. Behind them, a dozen Vrex defense ships gave chase. Tay pushed the engines to maximum. The Kurosi stepped onto an orbital station as if it were solid ground, then stepped off into clear space. Vrex ships fired, but their weapons hit the station they were trying to protect. They are too close, Mina shouted. Up, Day said. What? Climb! Make the ship climb! Tay did not question. He tilted the Kurosi 90 degrees and made it walk up. The legs grabbed at nothing, but the fold space engines made it look like the ship was climbing an invisible wall. Every Vrex pilot stopped firing. They stared. This was not possible. This did not make sense. Ships did not climb up in space. The Kurosi reached higher space and vanished into fold space jump. They escaped. But Empress Velxa now knew. The human general had been in her capital, in her home system, walking through her defenses like they were made of paper. She stood on the bridge of her flagship and felt something she had not felt in 40 cycles. Doubt. Find him, she ordered. Search every ship, every station. That human general is mine. Her science officer hesitated. Empress, the message he sent. About the witch. Our historians found references. Baba Yaga is an old Earth legend. A creature that... I do not care about Earth legends, Velxa snapped. But she did care. Because the message was spreading through her empire. Soldiers watched it. Officers discussed it. And everyone asked the same question. What did he mean about the house that eats empires? On the Kurosi, heading back to human space, Dai's team rested. They had survived the impossible. They had walked into the heart of the enemy empire and walked out again. Sir, Yuna asked quietly, the message about being raised by Baba Yaga, is that true? Day looked at her with those ancient eyes. Every word. She found me when I was 7, taught me for 15 years, and when I left, she gave me one final lesson. She said that stories are the oldest magic, that if you can make someone believe a story, you can make them believe anything. He looked out at the stars. The Vrex are now part of our story. In a few weeks, things will start moving in their homes. Doors will open by themselves. Objects will disappear. They will hear sounds in empty rooms. And they will remember my message. They will wonder if the witch is real, if her magic is real. And is it? Han asked. Day smiled. Does it matter? If they believe it is real, then it might as well be. That is the lesson. That is the magic. Far behind them, on Vrex Prime, in the Empress's own palace, a door slowly opened. No one had touched it. No one was there. A guard stared at it for a long moment, then closed it firmly. 5 minutes later, it opened again. The haunting had begun. 3 weeks after the Kurosi's mission, the reports started coming in from Vrex Prime. Small things at first. Maintenance crews finding doors open that should be locked. Security cameras showing objects moving when no one was near. Food disappearing from sealed containers. The Vrex explained it all logically. System glitches, equipment failures, stress from the war. But the reports kept coming, and they got worse. A high-ranking officer woke to find all the furniture in her quarters rearranged. A military commander heard children laughing in his empty hallway. An entire barracks reported seeing shadows that moved against the light. Empress Velxa read each report with growing anger. She knew what was happening. That human general had done something to her capital, something to her people. Enough, she said to her assembled fleet commanders. I am taking the Grand Armada to Earth. 3,000 ships. We will end this. Admiral Krexkor, who had lost the first battle, spoke carefully. Empress, the humans have proven they use unconventional tactics. Perhaps we should study them more before... No. Velxa's 4 eyes fixed on him. Every day we wait, more reports come in. My soldiers are seeing ghosts. My people are afraid in their own homes. This human general is making us look weak. We end this now. The Grand Armada left Vrex Prime like a wave of metal death. 3,000 warships, the largest fleet ever assembled. Enough firepower to crack planets. Enough ships to block out stars. On Earth, alarms sounded. The Vrex were coming. General Day stood in the military command center and watched the sensor readings. 3,000 ships, against humanity's 37 remaining operational vessels. The math was simple. Humanity would lose. Commander Sora, who commanded Earth's home defense, looked at the numbers and felt her courage falter. Sir, they will be here in 6 hours. We should evacuate the civilians. Get them to the underground shelters. No, Day said quietly. Everyone stays. This ends today one way or another. But sir, trust me, Sora. I have a plan. She wanted to believe him. She had seen the walking ship, seen the victories against impossible odds. But 3,000 ships? That was not a battle. That was extinction. Day called his core team together one last time. Yuna, Tay, Mina, and Han. They gathered in his quarters, where the old wooden box sat open on the table. The Vrex Empress is coming herself, Day said. That is good. Good? Tay asked. How is that good? Day picked up the small doll made of sticks and string, the one Baba Yaga had given him so many years ago. Because empires are just one person's story that everyone agrees to believe. If we break the Empress, we break the story. If we break the story, we break the empire. He looked at each of them. What I am about to tell you will sound insane. More insane than anything before. But I need you to trust me. They nodded. When the Vrex fleet arrives, we will fight them in orbit. Make it look desperate. Make it look like we are losing. And while they are focused on the fleet, I will be on Earth, in Siberia, in the forest where Baba Yaga found me. Sir, I do not understand, Yuna said. Day smiled that terrible smile. I am going to invite the Empress to tea, and when she comes, she will learn the final lesson. The one Baba Yaga taught me on my last day with her. What lesson? That the hunter becomes the hunted. That the wolf that comes to the door might never leave. That some houses eat those who enter. He stood. Mina, I need you to broadcast a message to the Vrex fleet, unencrypted. I want them all to hear it, especially the Empress. What should it say? Tell them where I am. Tell them I am alone. Tell them that if they want to end this war, they can find me in the Siberian forest, coordinates included. Mina stared at him. That is suicide. Perhaps. Or perhaps it is an invitation. The witch always invites the monster in. That is how the fairy tale works. 6 hours later, the Vrex Grand Armada arrived at Earth. 3,000 ships that blotted out the sun. They moved into attack formation, weapons charging. Commander Sora's fleet of 37 ships moved to intercept. It was hopeless. Everyone knew it. But they fought anyway because that is what humans do. The battle began. Vrex ships opened fire. Human vessels dodged and weaved, using every trick Day had taught them. They flew in impossible patterns. They used the walking ship to confuse enemy sensors. They broadcast recordings of children singing, of old folk songs, of sounds that made Vrex crews uncomfortable for reasons they could not explain. But there were too many enemies, too many weapons. The human fleet began to fall back toward Earth, losing ships as they went. On the Vrex flagship, Empress Velxa watched the battle with satisfaction. Finally, a normal fight. Finally, tactics that made sense. The humans were brave, but they would lose. Then she received the message, a single transmission from Earth's surface, from General Day himself. Empress Velxa, you came all this way to fight me, but you are fighting the wrong battle. If you want to end this war, come find me. I am in the Siberian forest. Coordinates attached. I am alone. I am unarmed. Come, and we will finish this. Her officers advised against it. Obvious trap, clear danger, stay with the fleet. But Velxa had not become empress by being cautious. And something about the message bothered her. The human general sounded tired, resigned, like someone who knew he had lost. Prepare my dropship, she ordered. 500 of my personal guard. We go to the surface. Empress, please. Now. The dropship cut through Earth's atmosphere like a knife. Behind it, the battle continued in orbit. Ships died. People died. But Velxa focused on the coordinates, on finding this human who had made her empire doubt itself. They landed in a clearing in the forest. Snow covered everything. Ancient pine trees stood like silent witnesses. And in the center of the clearing, impossible and wrong, stood a small wooden house on chicken legs. The house turned slowly, as if looking at them. Velxa's guards raised weapons. It is just a building, she said, trying to convince herself. Some kind of trick. Move forward. They approached carefully. The door opened by itself. Inside, they could see a man sitting at a table set for two. General Day. Velxa entered, her guards surrounding her. The house's interior was larger than it should be. Rooms branched off in directions that hurt to think about. The walls moved slightly as if breathing. Day sat calmly, tea already poured. You came, he said. Thank you. This ends now, human, Velxa said. Surrender, and your species might survive. Sit, Day said, gesturing to the other chair. We should talk first. Something in his voice made her pause. Made her sit. Her guard stayed close, weapons ready. Why did you bring me here? She asked. Because you needed to see. You needed to understand. This war was never about ships or weapons. It was about stories. More Earth nonsense. Is it? Day sipped his tea. Your empire is a story. The story says you are invincible. That conquest is your destiny. That fear flows from you to others. But stories can change. He looked at her with those ancient eyes. I grew up in this house. A witch named Baba Yaga raised me here. She taught me things your empire forgot. That reality bends. That belief shapes truth. That the hunter can become the prey. Fairy tales, Velxa said. But her voice shook slightly. You feel it, do not you? Day asked. The doubt. The things moving in your palace. The sounds in empty rooms. That is not technology. That is old magic. That is the story changing. The house moved. The walls shifted. Velxa's guards shouted and fired at something none of them could quite see. Their weapons did nothing. "What is this place?" Velxa demanded. "This is the house that eats empires," Day said softly. "This is where prideful leaders come to learn humility. This is where monsters discover they are not the scariest thing in the dark." The door slammed shut. The guards tried to open it. It would not move. Velxa stood, trying to stay calm. "Let me out, now." "Oh, you will leave," Day said. "But first you need to learn the lesson. Baba Yaga is very particular about lessons." In the shadows at the edge of the room, something moved. Something old and hungry. Above Earth, the battle turned. The Vrex fleet began to hesitate. Reports came from all ships, crews seeing things that should not be there, hearing children's laughter on empty decks, doors opening and closing, objects moving. The doubt spread, the infection of fear, and without the Empress there to give orders, the Vrex formation began to crack. In the house with chicken legs, Empress Velxa walked through impossible rooms, seeing visions of her empire's past, present, and possible future. Day walked beside her, his presence the only constant in the shifting madness. "You built an empire on fear," he said. "But fear is a weapon that cuts both ways. Baba Yaga taught me that. She taught me to turn fear back on those who wield it." Velxa saw her ships above Earth, uncertain and scared. She saw her capital world, where soldiers jumped at shadows. She saw what her empire had become, what she had made it. "What do you want?" she asked finally. "I want you to remember," Day said. "Remember that some species keep their magic alive. Remember that humans are friends with impossible things. Remember that the next time you think about conquest." They reached a final room. In it sat an old woman. Iron teeth. Black eyes. Baba Yaga herself. The witch smiled at the Empress. "Another leader comes to my house," she said in a voice like cracking ice. "Another conqueror who forgot that fear is older than empires." Velxa stared. This could not be real, but she felt the power radiating from the old woman, power that had nothing to do with technology or weapons. "Will you kill me?" Velxa asked. Baba Yaga laughed. "Kill you? No, child. I will teach you. I will show you what my apprentice learned. That reality is negotiable. That stories have power, that some doors, once opened, can never be closed." She stood, impossibly tall now. "You will leave here. You will return to your fleet, and you will remember this moment. Remember the house that walks. Remember the witch who bends worlds. Remember that humans are my children, and my children know old magic." Velxa blinked, and suddenly she stood outside the house, her guards around her, confused and terrified. Hours had passed, though it felt like minutes. The house began to walk. The massive chicken legs moved, and the whole structure strode away into the forest, vanishing among the trees. Velxa looked at her communicator. Admiral Krexkor was calling frantically. "Empress, we must retreat. The crews are breaking. Something is wrong. We cannot fight like this." She looked up at the sky. At her massive fleet, 3,000 ships, unstoppable force. But all she could see was that old woman's smile. All she could feel was the certainty cracking. "Withdraw," she ordered. "All ships. We leave Earth space." "But Empress! Now!" The Grand Armada retreated. 3,000 ships running from 37. General Day stood in the clearing and watched them go. Yuna's voice came through his communicator. "Sir, they are leaving. We won." "Yes," Day said quietly. "But they will remember. They will always remember the house that walks. And that is better than victory." Behind him, unseen and unheard, Baba Yaga laughed in her impossible house, proud of her apprentice. Empress Velxa returned to her flagship in silence. Her guards would not speak of what happened in the house. They could not. Every time they tried, the words stuck in their throats, replaced by memories of impossible rooms and shifting walls. She stood on the bridge and looked at her fleet, 3,000 ships that had retreated from a force 1/100th their size. Ships whose crews reported seeing children in the corridors, hearing songs that made them weep, finding doors that led to places that should not exist. "Status report," she ordered. Admiral Krexkor approached carefully. The Empress looked different, smaller somehow, despite her size. 200 ships report severe crew psychological issues. 5 captains have requested permission to return to home ports. All ships report equipment malfunctions that technicians cannot explain. And the humans? Their fleet is battered but intact. They are not pursuing us. Of course not, Velxa thought. They did not need to pursue. They had already won. She thought of the old woman in the impossible house, the witch, Baba Yaga, a creature from human legends that should not exist, but somehow did. A being that bent reality like clay and taught her secrets to a human child. "What are your orders, Empress?" Krexkor asked. Velxa took a long breath. She had ruled for 40 cycles, conquered 27 species, built an empire on certainty and fear. But in that house, she had learned something terrible and true. There were older things than empires, deeper magics than technology, and humans remembered them. "Send a message to all fleet commanders," she said slowly. "We are withdrawing from human space. All Vrex forces are to cease hostilities against Earth and her colonies." The bridge went silent. Everyone stared. "Empress," Krexkor said carefully, "we still have overwhelming force. We can still what?" Velxa turned to face him. "We can still fight an enemy that makes our ships see ghosts, that walks through our space in vessels that should not exist, that is led by a general raised by a witch who lives in a house with chicken legs." She moved closer to him. "I stood in that house, Krexkor. I saw things that broke every law of physics and logic. I met something older than stars that called humans her children. Tell me, Admiral, how do we fight that? What weapon do we use against magic itself?" Krexkor had no answer. "We withdraw," Velxa said again. "And we remember. We remember that some species should not be conquered. Some doors should not be opened. Some houses should not be entered." The order went out across the fleet. The Grand Armada began the long journey home. On Earth, celebrations erupted. Humanity had survived. Against impossible odds, against overwhelming force, they had made the greatest military power in the galaxy retreat. General Day stood apart from the celebrations. He watched from a high window in the military command center as cities lit up with joy. People danced in streets, ships fired victory salutes. Commander Yuna found him there. "Sir, they want you at the ceremony. They are giving medals, making speeches. You are the hero of humanity." "I am not a hero," Day said quietly. "I am just someone who remembered what others forgot." "The things that happened in that house?" Yuna asked carefully. "Were they real? Did Baba Yaga really appear?" Day looked at her. "Does it matter? The Empress believes she did. Her guards believe it. Soon her entire fleet will believe it. And belief, Yuna, is the strongest magic of all. But was she really there?" Day smiled. "I have not seen Baba Yaga in 15 years, not since I left her house. But she taught me well. She taught me to make people see what they fear, believe what they doubt, and question what they know." He turned back to the window. "The house exists. It walks through that forest on chicken legs. I grew up there. That much is true. As for the rest, I learned from the best witch who ever lived. I learned to turn stories into weapons and belief into reality." The Empress saw what she needed to see to learn the lesson. And what lesson was that? That humanity survived not by being stronger or smarter. We survived by keeping our magic alive, our stories, our impossible beliefs. While other species traded folklore for logic, we kept our fairy tales. While they forgot their monsters, we remembered ours. And that made all the difference. In the weeks that followed, reports came from across the galaxy. The Vrex Empire had stopped its expansion. Empress Velxa had issued new policies, focusing on consolidation instead of conquest. Some said she had gone mad. Others said she had grown wise. The truth spread through military channels and civilian networks. Humans had fought the Vrex using psychological warfare so advanced it seemed like magic. They had a general raised by a witch. They had ships that walked. They had made the greatest empire in the galaxy run away in fear. Other species began to look at humanity differently, not as weak newcomers, but as something stranger and potentially more dangerous. Humans who kept their old stories alive. Humans who believed in impossible things. Young Vrex Officer Sek sat in his quarters and listened to old Earth transmissions. He had been part of the Grand Armada. He had seen the walking ship. He had felt the doubt that infected his crew. Now he listened to a recording of a human fairy tale, about a witch named Baba Yaga, about a house with chicken legs, about children who survived impossible tasks by learning that reality was flexible. He realized, with growing horror, that his species' war with humanity had never been a war at all. It had been a fairy tale, a story. And in stories, the empire that forgot its magic always lost to the child who remembered. The recording ended with an old human woman's laughter. Sek turned it off and sat in darkness, wondering if that laughter would follow him forever. Back on Earth, General Day prepared to retire. He had done what he set out to do. Humanity was safe. The Vrex had learned their lesson. Other empires would think twice before threatening Earth. His team gathered for one final meeting. Yuna, Tai, Mina, and Han. They had survived impossible odds together. "What will you do now, sir?" Han asked. "Return to the forest," Day said. "Return to where it all began." "To the house?" Mina asked. "To pay my respects, to thank my teacher if she's still there, to remember what she taught me?" "Will we see you again?" Yuna asked. Day smiled. It was not his terrible warrior smile. It was something gentler. "Perhaps, if humanity needs me, if another empire forgets the old lessons. But I think we will be fine. Other species know now. Earth is not to be threatened. Not because we are strong, but because we remember magic." He stood to leave, then paused. "Remember what we did here. Remember that the strongest weapons are not always visible. That fear and belief can topple empires. That stories have power. And remember that somewhere in a Siberian forest, there is a house that walks, and a witch who teaches lessons to those brave or foolish enough to seek her." 1 week later, Day stood in the forest clearing. Snow fell softly. Ancient trees surrounded him. And there, waiting as it always waited, stood the house on chicken legs. The door opened before he could knock. Inside, Baba Yaga sat at her table, grinding something in her great mortar. She looked up at him with those black well eyes and smiled with her iron teeth. "My apprentice returns," she said. Her voice was old trees and winter wind. "You did well." "You helped me," Day said. "In the house, the Empress saw you." Baba Yaga cackled. "Perhaps she did. Perhaps she saw what she needed to see. Or perhaps I was there. Reality is negotiable, as I taught you. Did you learn the final lesson?" "That the hunter becomes the hunted," Day said. "That pride comes before the fall. That empires are just stories, and stories can be rewritten." "Good, good." She poured tea from a pot that had not been there a moment before. "But there is one more lesson, the most important one." Day sat across from her, in the same seat he had occupied as a child, learning impossible things. "What lesson?" That magic is real, Baba Yaga said. Not the tricks you showed them, not the psychological warfare, real magic. The kind that bends worlds and breaks time, the kind I possess. She leaned forward. I am old, boy. Older than your species. Older than most stars. I have seen empires rise and fall like waves. I have taught lessons to kings and beasts and gods. And I chose you, out of all the humans I could have found, to learn my ways. Why me? Because you were willing to believe. Because when you saw my house walk, you did not deny it. You accepted it. And acceptance is the first step to power. She reached across the table and touched his forehead with one gnarled finger. You are my heir, Day, the only one I have ever named. When I finally fade from this world, this house will be yours. These lessons will be yours to teach. This magic will be yours to wield. Day felt something shift in his chest. A weight, a responsibility, a power. I do not know if I can— You already have, Baba Yaga interrupted. You saved your species, not with ships or weapons, but with stories and belief and old magic. You are ready. She stood. The house began to move, the chicken legs taking steps through the forest. Go back to your people. Live your life. But know that when you are needed, truly needed, this house will find you. And when I am gone, it will be yours. You will teach the lessons. You will remind the proud and punish the cruel. You will be what I was, the thing in the dark that teaches wisdom through fear. Day stood and bowed deeply. Thank you, teacher, for everything. Baba Yaga waved a dismissive hand. Go, go, and remember. Reality is negotiable. Fear is currency, and stories are weapons. Use them well. Day left the house and walked back through the forest. Behind him, the house on chicken legs strode away between the trees, vanishing into mist and legend. He returned to his small cabin near the command center. He would live quietly now, watch over humanity, wait, and sometimes, late at night, he would hold the small doll Baba Yaga had given him and remember the lessons, the impossible tasks, the terrible wisdom. He would remember that humanity survived not by being stronger, but by being stranger, by keeping their fairy tales alive when other species forgot theirs, by believing in magic when the universe demanded logic. Above Earth, ships patrolled peacefully. Trade routes reopened. Life went on. But every alien species that looked at that small blue planet remembered the story. The general raised by a witch, the ships that walked, the house that ate empires, and they stayed away. In the Vrex capital, Empress Velxa ruled differently now, with wisdom instead of pride, with caution instead of arrogance. She still saw the house sometimes in her dreams, still heard the old woman's laughter. She remembered the lesson, and she taught it to her empire. There are things older than conquest, deeper than war, and some species should be left alone. Humanity had made friends with those things long ago. In their oldest stories and darkest fairy tales, they had kept their magic alive, and that magic had saved them. The story spread across the galaxy. A warning, a promise, a fairy tale that was true. Do not threaten Earth. Do not hunt humans. Because somewhere in a forest that exists in folded space and old belief, there is a house that walks on chicken legs, and it is always hungry for those who forget that magic is real. And someday, when Baba Yaga finally rests, a new teacher will sit in that house, a human who learned from the best, who knows the old ways, who remembers. General Day, heir to the witch, guardian of impossible things, keeper of the house that walks. The fairy tale continues. The lessons wait to be taught, and reality, as always, remains negotiable for those brave enough to question it.